Hey everyone, this is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Monday, everybody. We are going to take a look today at all of the astrological transits for the week ahead. That is today, Monday, May 19th through Sunday, May 25th. The highlight of the week is Saturn's entrance into Aries. We're going to be spending a significant amount of time looking at that transit this week, including horoscopes for all 12 signs later in the week. Today, I will look at the angular house positions for the rising signs that are cardinal. So if you're an Aries, a Cancer, a Libra, or a Capricorn rising horoscope, I'm going to remind you of the angular place that Saturn is entering this week, but then we'll do horoscopes for all 12 signs later. At the beginning of the week, when I do overviews, I like to include maybe the transit of the week in terms of the angular houses that that transit is hitting. So that will always mean that one family of signs, cardinal, fixed, or mutable, will get a little something at the beginning of the week. Cardinal signs today. So anyway, there's a bunch of other transits, though. We've got a number of sextiles and trines that are very interesting this week. A Mercury conjunction with Uranus that's going to flash. And of course, Saturn's entrance into Aries. So lots to get into. Before we do that, remember to like and subscribe. We want this to be a place for your daily spiritual practice of astrology, a little ashram that you can join in with other like-minded people who use astrology as a part of their daily spiritual life. We found that a lot of people watch regularly but are not yet subscribed. So if you take a second to do that, it really does help us grow. We appreciate it. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. Let's take a look over there right now. You can take a look. If you go to events, in-person events, if you're in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, a piece of fuzz in my mouth. If you're in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, on Saturday, June 21st from 6 to 8:30 p.m., we will be holding a summer solstice gathering at the new city center, the Grapevine Collective. It's a great place. We've hosted a few other events. It's free to join. Just make sure you RSVP so we know you're coming. Like to see you there. If you go to the in-person events page, you'll see the speaker series coming up. And this is June 7th, June 8th, and June 15th. These are free talks given by colleagues and friends of Nightlight. Gemini Brett will be given a talk on prenatal eclipses and nodal return windows. Marjorie Cottrell, who is one of our assistant course directors at Nightlight, is giving a talk on looking at Saturn in the Aries domicile of Aquarius, And Krista Hamilton, who's another Nightlight alum, is going to be looking at the decans and astrology and tarot. So these are three great talks you can attend for free. You just have to make sure you register, so we give you the webinar link. And if you can't make it live, of course, the recording is available. So all good things coming up. If you go to live talks that I'm giving, you'll see my next one. If you missed Jupiter's exaltation in Cancer last week, you can still purchase the replay of that. I'm going to be giving a talk in June on Uranus in Gemini, trining Pluto in Aquarius, that I've called When New Objects Appear in the Sky. This is going to be a really fun talk looking at another major historical outer planetary transit. So register for that. And again, you get the recording if you can't attend live. Now, I've buried the lead here because I've talked about it so much regularly. But our first year course, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, begins June 22nd. At the end of today's video, there's an informational video that you can listen to that will tell you all about the program and what it includes. At the bottom of this page, you will find payment plans and payment options. Though our early bird sale is done at the time that you are watching this, you can still use need-based tuition. So let's say you were really hoping to use the early bird because it matches your budget and otherwise you couldn't afford it. We want to make sure that people don't enter a scenario where it's like, I really want to study, I really want to take my astrology to the next level, but the cost is financially prohibitive for my my earning or my financial reality. If that's you, we want to make sure that people are not priced out of learning something spiritual. So please use the tuition assistance. That is available all the way up until the start of the course. And again, at the end of today's talk, you'll find an informational video outlining everything the course includes. We're getting closer to enrollment, so I can't wait to see you guys there. Studying under a Uranus-Pluto trine in Gemini and Aquarius is going to be amazing. I really can't wait. These transits are very ideal for a number of reasons for studying things like astrology. All right, on that note, let's take a look at the astrology of the week ahead. I'm going to put the real-time clock up. And there were some requests to meet the puppy. So at the end of today's video, I am going to pause. And unless the puppy's sleeping, which it's like a sleeping baby, like you don't wake up a sleeping puppy because you're getting a breather. But if the puppy is awake and hanging out, I'll bring him on camera so you can say hello to him. And if not, then one of the days this week I'll do that. Okay. Anyhow, so many people ask, "Can I see the puppy? Can I see the?" I was like, "Yeah, we'll do like a show and tell." So anyway, here we are, Monday, May 19th. Let's take a look at the transits for the week ahead in summary first. So a bunch of sextiles and trines. Tomorrow, we're going to see the sun briefly sextiling Saturn. So anytime you have a sextile between planets, you're typically talking about the ability of these two planets to bring forth their archetypal combination in a way that feels harmonious, or that is more constructive in terms of the way we relatively describe our karmic experiences in the world. So that leaves room, as always, for interpretation. But certainly this sun sextile to Saturn brings a kind of bright but stoic and wise. To me, it's like a bright, knowing grandmother or grandfather energy. There's the combination of the brightness of the sun and the wisdom of an anoretic Saturn in Pisces coming together in very earthy feminine signs. That sextile is present at the start of the week. The other thing happening tomorrow, just as a side note, is the sun, after making that sextile, will enter the sign of Gemini, where it will immediately now be in sextiles and trines with outer planets. Everything gets very airy as the week goes on. So that's something to just pay attention to in the background. I won't be doing a video on that, but it does happen tomorrow at basically the same time that the sextile occurs. Right afterwards, sun enters Gemini. Now, if we go forward just a little bit further to Thursday, the 22nd, this is, a sort of subtle but powerful transit. Venus will be trining Mars. Now, Venus is in Mars's sign and therefore has reception with Mars, who is her host, but is in the superior trine. This is really nice. It's sort of like saying you have something of a demanding house guest in Venus because she's asserting herself from a superior position over Mars, but Mars is her host. It's kind of like when my daughter is asking me for a lot, but she's not doing it in a rude way. And so I'm like, okay, she's asking me to do something that's a bit of a stretch for me, but you know what? I'm going to do it because, it's a lot, but it's something I can do. It's something I can provide for. So I kind of like, I always come up with images like that in my head when I'm trying to think about aspect dynamics, because it really helps to put them in images rather than keeping them conceptual. So Venus is a house guest in the temple of Aries. She's needing something from Mars. That's one way that you can think about what a planet's doing when it's in another planet's temple. I'm Venus, I need love. I'm Venus, I need sensuality or art or women or friends. And I need the host will provide those things for me. When Venus then gets into a superior trine with Mars, she's placing a little bit of pressure on Mars and Leo to provide for her needs. But it's a trine, which is very constructive and effective and helpful. And because she has the guest host dynamic at play, it's like she's a bit of a demanding guest, but Mars is going to provide something fairly constructive and positive here in their dynamic. It's very fiery, though. So we could be noticing the surge of fire as the week goes on, but a pretty constructive trine from the two of them, all things considered. We'll be talking about that as the week goes on. On the same day, the sun will sextile Neptune. Again, sextiles, they're not like, I wouldn't consider them throwaway transits, but they're often subtle, right? Like, let me give you a super easy example. The sun sextiles Neptune, and you find that you and your kids are running through the sprinkler in the yard and having fun and being joyful and getting wet together. It's a nice memory. It passes like that. And the sun was sextiling Neptune. I'm making this up. I'm not including Gemini or Aries here, where the two planets are actually located, but you get the point. It's not a throwaway transit. That might be a memory that your kids remember when they're 40, but it doesn't have to, like, sextiles can be so smooth that they're not popping out like, like they all of the funniest images are coming to my head. I apologize. They're not sticking out like a stressful event that you have to maneuver around typically. They're more like a smoothly integrated event, which is why sometimes you don't even notice them. That's what I'm trying to say. if the inappropriate voices and images in my head would just give me a minute. It happens though, like when you're, I don't know, this is my experience as an astrologer, when you're processing transits and you're talking about them in a class or with a client or whatever, my my encyclopedia or almanac inside my brain is all images, and the images that pop up randomly, I don't they just arrive. They just pop up, and some of them are so absurd and funny, and immediately I'm like, yeah, that's a good example, but not appropriate for the podcast. So, and then sometimes I share them and it turns out that maybe everyone has the same absurd sense of humor that I do. But all right, anyway, May 24th, let's move on. On the 24th, Saturday, we have the sun trining Pluto. Now, this is a not so subtle transit because we have a very constructive trine. Again, notice the sextiles and trines this week. Really nice supportive energy, truly. I mean, especially given that at the end of the week, we've got Saturn entering its fall in Aries. It feels like, when like the door comes open and like Darth Vader enters. The rebels with their little pea guns are sitting there. So anyway, sun trining Pluto over the weekend. Nice smooth energy. I feel like deeper, more profound shifts of our thinking, communicating, even things like technology and something around technology popping up that feels like a little bit deeper or more profound. I wouldn't be surprised to see things like that popping up over the weekend. And let me just, okay, put the screen back up. I apologize. I had something pop up and I needed to get rid of it so it wasn't blocking my view. Okay. So the sun trines Pluto on Saturday, May 24th. You're going to be feeling this building from the 20th all the way through the 24th. So yeah, that 3-degree range is significant, but this is where the transit perfects. And so the most intense expression of the transit is usually felt or observed in our lives right around this time. So that would be Saturday. I'll come back and say more about that in a second. Then on the same day, what's really profound about this to me that makes this day sort of doubly important is that on the same day, we're seeing Mercury conjoin Uranus. So a sun trine to Pluto in Mercury's sign, well, Mercury actually conjoins Uranus, feels like, whoa, now we're talking about a significant movement of facts or events or perceptions or learning or speaking or thinking. Concepts are moving around. I feel like this could be a moment of real movement and progress, especially on the conceptual, ideological, mental level. And in terms of discovering thoughts or ideas that can free up space or that are somehow liberating or freeing up more creative energy. So I love this kind of creative burst of Mercury and the sun that happened on Saturday. That is a really nice transit. Well, what's interesting is whatever that little revolution is all about, it comes just as Saturn enters Aries. So if we take this forward by some hours on Saturday, the 24th, we're going to see that it is not long before Saturn enters Aries, which happens about 11 p.m. Central. So it's on May 25th on the East Coast, basically, by this point in the United States. It'll be a little earlier in the evening on the West Coast Central Time. We get it pretty close to midnight, around 11 p.m. So you could say Saturn enters Aries. For most people, you'll really wake up to find Saturn has been in Aries on the 25th. But the 24th here is obviously important. By the way, you see me, I'm like pulling fuzz. Like I have a puppy and I have like just dog hair. So, but he is so cute. Anyway, Mercury then enters Gemini on Sunday. These are big talking points with the Saturn entrance into Aries and the Mercury conjunction to Uranus and the sun trine to Pluto. Like Saturday is a big day. However, when we get to the 25th, Mercury will sextile Saturn. And I mean, to me, that's, again, just like the transits earlier in the week. Sun sextile Saturn, Venus trine Mars, Sun sextile Neptune, Sun trine Pluto. A lot of trines and sextiles. So overall, I like that there is so much smooth flowing energy this week, again, especially since Saturn is changing signs and entering into a more difficult dignity space. A lot of us may notice that, but given the kind of buffer of all these little transits that are of the nature of Venus and Jupiter, I feel like we should this should be a week where there's a lot of support and positive movements and developments. Again, that's relative what that looks like for each of us, but yeah. So Mercury sextiling Saturn on Sunday the 25th, and that rounds out the week. All right. Now let's go back and say a little bit more about each of these transits one at a time, just kind of covering them generally first. So the Sun sextile to Saturn on Tuesday, May 20th, that is tomorrow. That little sextile to me, again, it's so brief. One of the things that I like when these two planets come together is the providing for creative resources that are kind of wise and steady. There's a gravitas when the Sun and Saturn get together always. There's a kind of heaviness or weightiness. And at its worst, the squares, oppositions, and conjunctions can sometimes feel like melancholic and a little depressive or morose, almost like a rainy day when you really wanted a sunny one. But when they get into sextiles and trines, what I've found is that the way that I would talk about it, like an image that comes to my mind, speaking of that little thing that I was talking about earlier that pops up for me, would be a day in the spring when there is the laying of new mulch, around the landscaping. Maybe there's landscapers out in front of your apartment complex. It's a hot day of work in the sun, but you're doing something that's really beautiful. You're planting in your garden. You're getting your yard cleaned and trimmed for the first time in spring. The combination of these two energies, earth and water, the sun and Saturn, but in a Venusian sextile, to me feels like productive, practical, supported, fortified, a little serious, a little heavy, but smooth. It's like, well, at least you're not working on a 95-degree day. It's 75 sunny and there's a breeze, but you have to work all day on getting something done. There's sort of support there to do it. That's the image one image that I would use to describe the resourcefulness of this transit. So watch for that. That's, tomorrow. If we go forward to the 22nd on Thursday, the Venus trine to Mars, to me, we will be spending extra time on this week, as well as the Sun trine Pluto, Mercury conjunct Uranus, Saturn entering Aries. That will be the focus for our week, that transit, and then Venus trine to Mars. Venus' trine to Mars happens Thursday, May 22nd. You're going to feel it building from today all the way through Thursday, and then, starting to fade over the weekend. When Venus is a guest in any temple, here's a simple way of thinking about what's happening. Venus comes in and says, I always need to act and behave like myself. I need to bring about my own significations. And we're not talking now about Venus in a natal chart who might also be tied to the topics of other houses through her rulership, just purely as kind of putting Venus in a transit vacuum. Venus is always going to be Venus. I want to do love. I want to do relationships. I want to do creativity. I want to do sensual fulfillment. I want to do friendship. Even I want to maybe go shopping or eat tasty food, right? Think about what Venus likes to do. Now put Venus in the temple of Mars, and Mars has to provide for Venus the material that she will use. So this is why Venus in a Mars ruled sign can be tricky, because she's like, I want love and friendship. And Mars is like, well, how about competition instead? Well, if you enjoy playing, I don't know, pickleball, I've never played it, but if you enjoy playing pickleball with your friend, then that would be lovely. If you enjoy, competitive banter, like playing a board game or Yahtzee or something, playing some poker with friends, then, fine. You're well provided for in Aries, but you can see how what Mars provides for Venus in some ways kind of conflicts with Venus's nature. So there has to be a creativity or a willingness to take what the host can give. And that is usually going to translate for us as working with Mars energy in the way of Venus. Like, how do you do that tension? So anyway, now imagine that Venus is like, I want to do Venus things, and Mars has to provide. Well, if you're in a superior trine to Mars and your Venus, this means that you're saying, look, Mars, I really want to do love, creativity, sensuality, good food, sunshine, pleasing things. That's what I want. When Venus is in the superior position in the trine with Mars, she's really putting pressure on Mars to provide something that's closer to her own nature, that will resemble more of her needs and her desires. And then Mars in the sign of Leo will provide it. How about we give you this? We're gonna, I don't know, let's just say, like, we're gonna go to a public park. We're gonna like look our best and be well dressed and take the family out and have fun and notice and observe all of the people and feel good about the way we look. And it's like almost like the peacocking of Mars and Venus, like Mars and Leo. Like Mars and Leo is going to provide some Leonic, material. Like, let's go find a place to strut publicly and enjoy the summer weather. Of course, again, just a made up image. My point is that we should find that Mars in Leo, think about what Mars in Leo provides: power, pride, strength, nobility, courage, honor, dignity. It's kind of like a proud king. If Venus in Aries is like the proud king's courageous, willful daughter, like think of Venus in Aries that way, then the proud king is going to provide something meaningful for his fiery daughter. That is the way that I'm looking at this. And we will break this transit down more, and I will have 5 things to watch for and all that good stuff as the week goes on. But again, it's a really good trine in the sense that there is, when you see reception between a planet and its host in an aspect perfecting, and it's a trine, that's typically going to show up favorably for all of us. So we'll watch out for that. Now, on the same day, the sun sextiles Neptune. And this to me is like more evidence that the day is probably going to feel in some ways sort of ideal. There's a fiery idealism in the sky. There's a feeling of victory and a feeling of kind of being on cloud 9. And, because the sun and Neptune, when they sextile, provide that, it's almost like beautiful sunlight. Have you ever been to the ocean before and you've watched a sunrise and you've seen the disk of the sun coming up over the ocean and that beautiful serene, it feels like anything is possible in those 10 minutes of watching the sun come up over the ocean. Get this feeling of light and clarity, and also the endless expanse of water. It's a very vast, big, kind of sublime feeling. That's how I feel. I just notice those little moods coming through when the sun and Neptune connect in positive ways, like sextiles or trines. So that's coming through at the same time that Venus is trining Mars. That makes for a pretty nice little window of time on Thursday. In particular, you're going to feel that building on Wednesday, and then it really sort of leaks over into Thursday. Now, then we get into the weekend, and this is where we will be spending a whole bunch of time this week. On the 24th, you'll feel this building throughout the week again. Like now through the weekend, you will notice these themes building. You're going to see 2 things. First, we're basically simultaneously, it's not really a first or second, the Mercury Uranus conjunction in Taurus and the sun's trine to Pluto. Now, what these 2 things share in common is that the sun's trine to Pluto, again, think about sunshine as things like illumination, clarity, direction, purpose, courage, individuality, and that kind of sense that you're on a heroic, purposeful mission in life, all solar themes. They connect in a trine to Pluto in Aquarius, and it feels like a surge of constructive power, especially mentally or intellectually, or on the level of things like commerce and ideas and technology and plans and thoughts and words and communication. So you get this kind of surge of very airy, creative energy from the sun and Pluto, very constructive, very useful. And then Mercury conjoining Uranus, the 2 tend to be very inventive, a little disruptive, like a little bit of divine chaos, but also very brilliant, quick, adaptive, innovative, creative, original, outside the box. I love this combination. This combination is so cool. I think Saturday is going to be a really neat day where we see a kind of revolution of circumstances and a surge of creative power and energy. So again, we'll be spending a lot more time with that one as the week goes on. That'll be a highlight for this week's content. Then this is really the big news. Saturn enters Aries. This will be our other major talking point. I'm not going to say as much about this right now because it's so big. There's so much to talk about that's why we're going to have a few videos, including horoscopes, devoted to Saturn and Aries. Saturn's entrance into Aries, it, I don't want people to think because Saturn is entering its fall that it's bad. But we are talking about the exaltation of the sun, and the spring domicile of Mars. And here we have the god that is associated with winter and fall, decay, old age, impermanence, death, endings, uh, you know, wisdom, time, maturity, but sort of melancholic, sort of heavier, more gravitas. When it enters Aries, think about it like this. If you are the house of the spring sunshine and you have someone entering hospice care coming into your home, well, you're going to be able to provide light, life, enthusiasm, buoyancy, a kind of hopeful, uplifted quality for Saturn. But you can't deny the fact that you're also, as the host, you're in the presence of someone who's ready to leave their body. Now, I'm using this as an image, right? I'm not saying anyone's going to die. I'm just saying, like, there's a strong juxtaposition between the themes of early, young life and birth and old age, death, etc., that comes up with Saturn and Aries, which is why there are so many interesting but complex themes that come up when Saturn is in the sign of the sun. The exaltation of the sun, Aries. Same thing, it's in its detriment in Leo because the sun and Saturn are natural opposites, like life and death, spring and winter, etc. So we're going to explore that archetypal tension this week. Then again, on Sunday, Mercury will enter Gemini and immediately sextile Saturn and Aries. I like that we're having a little communication from the messenger right away with respect to Saturn's entrance into Aries. And I guess thankfully, Mercury will be well resourced in its own sign, connecting with Saturn in a harmonious sextile, immediately giving some voice to Saturn in Aries. We'll get a pretty clear sense by Sunday of what some of Saturn in Aries' first words and thoughts are, you might say. So that should be interesting. Certainly as an astrologer, I'm looking forward to that because I love it when a planet changes signs, a slow moving planet, and then you get a first transit activating that. It gives an outlet for the planet to speak and give you some thoughts immediately about what this new archetypal combination is like. All right. Well, as promised, Saturn is entering Aries, which means the cardinal signs are getting the angular transits this week. I will do horoscopes for all 12 signs later in the week, but for now, let's just take a look at what's happening for our cardinal signs rising. So we're going to start with Aries. Look, if you're an Aries rising, this means that you're getting Saturn entering your first house, which really announces a new era in your life that's going to be quite existential. Who am I? What am I doing? What's no longer working? How am I aging? How am I maturing? What do I need to take more seriously? Is it my health? Is it my body? In what ways am I being asked to grow and evolve as a person? In what patterns psychologically are becoming clear as those that are troublesome or problematic that I need to work on or change? And how am I showing up in my relationships or at my job or in my family? Saturn and Aries will bring a lot to the forefront for the kind of in the personal psychological realm for those Aries risings. If we go forward to Cancer, we're looking at this in the 10th house, which is really about your interaction with the world, the public sphere, your forward or outward facing self, which is there no matter what phase of life we're in, retirement or a working stage of life, or if we're a parent full time or whatever. It's still about how you show up and how you're seen and how you exist in the world. And then the interior life, by contrast, there's always a juxtaposition between the external and the internal when transits enter the 10th house. They're naturally activating that binary. The 10th house also has to do with purpose. What is my purpose professionally? How is my career changing directions? What is ending? What tensions are coming up that I have to look at? How am I being asked to be more of a veteran or a master even out in some space, publicly or within my career? Saturn in the 10th can bring a lot of time-tested, veteran, mature wisdom and experience to bear on your career as well. So formative, substantive developments in the career for Cancers, but some of them will also be trying. We look at Libra and we see this entering your 7th house, the place of relationships, the place that's connected to spouse and marriage, intimacy, interpersonal connections with other people, the happiness that is really there for all of us in intimate interpersonal dynamics. Saturn in Aries is like, we've got evolutionary curriculum starting to form in the sphere of interpersonal dynamics. This can also include things like business relationships, any kind of working relationship, and even the way we work or deal with various adversaries in life. So finally, for Capricorns, we see Saturn in Aries in the 4th house, the place of roots, of home, family, of the internal versus external sphere. So the private life, the home life, where you're living, your parents, your ancestral karma, your history, and where you call home, or how you create a safe, private, secure space for rest, recovery, safety. So questions about parental karma, familial karma, all of that kind of stuff coming up for Capricorns. And also a period of time in which you're doing something like reconstruction of your roots. For a couple of years, there's going to be an emphasis on learning and growing so that the foundation of your life, psychically, emotionally, physically, is more solid, more mature, and a safer place that can really hold and support you. So these are, again, just a few thoughts for our cardinal signs rising, because you've got the angular transit this week, but we'll do horoscopes for everyone later. After I sign off right now, there is an informational video about the Year 1 program that starts on June 22nd. I'm really excited about this program. If you are getting into astrology and you just feel like you've been bit by the bug, you're starting to see and feel and experience things through the language, it really helps to have someone take the guesswork out and guide you through a well-structured design curriculum, put you on a path through a lineage that you can develop your own creative identity through as an astrologer, a community of teachers. I'm obviously the lead teacher, but there's a whole staff that we have, a lot of community support, tutoring sessions. Most of our student communities form meetup groups outside of class. So lots there to give you resources to grow as an astrologer, whether it's professional or just for your own spiritual enrichment. We're here for you. So I hope to see some of you soon, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm excited to tell you about our upcoming program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. It is our first-year course in Hellenistic astrology that begins at the end of June. June 22nd is our starting date. I'm going to take you over to the course page to tell you more about the program and what you will learn while you are in it. So here we go over to the Nightlight Astrology website. You can find this at nightlightastrology.com. Click on the courses tab, go to the first year course. Now, this program is ideal for people who maybe have a little bit of background already in astrology. Maybe you've done some studying on your own independently, taken some courses or webinars and workshops, but you're looking to deepen your understanding of astrology. And maybe Hellenistic astrology in particular has been calling to you. I'll tell you more about what Hellenistic astrology is in a minute, but on the first year course page, you're going to find everything that the course includes. I want to make the structure of the course clear first, and then at the end, I'm going to tell you 5 reasons that I think anyone might have for studying astrology, and you can see if you check any of those boxes. First of all, there are 30 classes on the year. It's just a little under a year-long program with 30 webinars. Every webinar is 2 to 3 hours long, including a lively Q&A and conversational section after we finished our lesson for the day. Each of those lessons I lead personally through live webinars, so you can attend those live. If you want to follow along at your own pace in your own time, on your own schedule, you can always look at the recordings and take those in. And I'm going to show you what the class page looks like so you can see how you can interact with the course as uniquely and creatively as you want to. But you can either attend the live webinars or listen to the recordings or audio or video. In between major units of study within those 30 classes, we have separate classes outside of the 30 classes that are essentially tutoring sessions led by our staff, our course directors. We have 3 of them for our first year program, 3 tutors that help me guide every single class you're in and lead study sessions, and are also staffing an interactive group forum discussion where you can ask questions, look at charts, practice what you're learning with all of your classmates and with tutors there to help you. They'll always answer questions within a business day. So it's a really well-staffed, well-structured program. In between those major units of study and the breakout sessions, we also have guest speakers that come in throughout the year that you get free access to. The recordings are archived for you in your class folders. So you're getting people within our curriculum. And you're also getting to visit with some astrologers who are outside of the Nightlight School, but we really admire their work, and so we bring them in. You also have a ton of bonus material. With every lesson, we have recommended quizzes, study guides, optional reading. And that allows people who are really, really, intense, deep, like studious types to go as far as you want to with the material, while other people who are maybe, content to take things in at, just kind of taking in the classes, that's there for you too. So you can kind of go as deeply as you want to. The class, if as the year goes on, goes through major units of study in ancient Hellenistic astrology. So if you're not familiar with ancient Hellenistic astrology, this is the earliest form of horoscopic astrology. This is where the astrology that you've probably learned today comes from originally. And that makes some of its features unique. Like, for example, ancient astrologers utilized whole sign houses. We study why they used whole sign houses, how they used them, and we study the why behind really everything: houses, signs, planets, aspects, dignities, essential and accidental dignities, delineation approaches. How do you read and predict within a natal chart? All of those theoretical areas of astrology, we not only learn how to do, but we learn the why behind it. And this is what I think people find most empowering about the course, is that ancient astrology really helps to give you the rationale for everything so that you have the insight available to go off script. What I mean by that is, like, let's say you're learning about a sign, Aries or Taurus or a Gemini, something like that. Ancient astrology won't just give you a list of the adjectives or keywords or descriptions of, say, a sign or a planet. It will give you an underlying philosophical explanation that then allows you to extrapolate from it the kinds of lists that you read in textbooks, which means you'll have an understanding of why everything on a list in a textbook is there in the first place. And you'll also have the insight and creativity available to add things to the list that are a part of your own unique intuition and contribution to astrology. And this is what ancient astrologers wanted students of astrology to learn: the why behind everything. So this is a class where, even though you're seeing things like planet signs, houses, dignities, aspects, and you're like, oh, I've already learned about those things. Not if you haven't studied Hellenistic astrology. I don't mean to sound condescending, but like, truly, most people's experience coming through this program is, wow, I had no idea all that I didn't know about the roots of everything that I've understood thus far about astrology. So it really is about digging into the philosophical core of why we do everything. And then you have greater intuitive and creative capacity as an astrological craftsman or craftswoman. So anyway, that's a brief explanation of why I think Hellenistic astrology is important. Not to mention that ancient astrology was really focused on our ability to accurately describe and predict things in the realm of karma, fate, and destiny, whereas modern astrology's hallmark and strength is psychological depth. And so when you put the two together in our program, which is why it's called Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, I think you have something really special. So on that note, you can see everything that we cover here. So there's a video with some of our alumni you can watch. Everything is there on the page. Now, there are 5 reasons that I want to touch on briefly before I tell you about your payment options and need-based tuition. These are 5 reasons to study astrology that if you mark any of these boxes, especially if you mark several of them, then I think it's a good indication that you might be ideal for this program, might be an ideal fit. So the first one is, if you find that astrology has become a part of your daily, weekly, monthly, yearly spiritual practice, it is a part of how you lead an inner life, then there is nothing more empowering than deepening your connection to that language, because that puts you more in the driver's seat. It's always good to have astrologers that you rely on, teachers that you listen to, get a little objective perspective, especially when you're looking at your own chart through a reading. But there's really nothing more empowering than learning to speak the language at a deeper level for yourself. And if that calls to you, if you want to understand things and be able to speak more confidently and clearly about this sacred language that you love. And this is a great reason to take a structured program. Number two is that you feel called to read charts for people. And look, not everyone who takes our programs is on a professional track, but we have 4 years worth of professional training programs at Nightlight that will prepare you to read professionally for others if that's the path that you're on. Maybe you don't even know if you're on that path. That's fine too. Many people take our programs just for the sake of their own personal enrichment. And again, to be kind of more in the driver's seat with respect to your astrological journey. You have more of an understanding. You can be more confident in reading symbols and experiencing transits with your own understanding that you've cultivated. But sometimes people want to read for other people. This will definitely set you up to do that. We have a certification track where you can take exams at the end of every year. They're optional. You don't have to if you're not on that level of interest. Number three, you have done a lot of self-study. You've heard things from here and there, but you're looking to bring it all together. It is overwhelming to study astrology on your own. So if you want organization, structure, and coherence, what you're getting in this program is going on 15 years of training astrologers, 15 years of developing curriculum that has in mind the overwhelm that many people experience. And this program is structured year 1, year 2, year 3, however far you want to go with our curriculum, to give you an organized, structured, coherent way of understanding the history and language of astrology from both ancient times to modern times in all of the vastness that the field includes. And also, as we go, we want to give you the confidence that you are a part now of an astrological lineage. Astrology has always been practitioner-based. Coming through Nightlight, you are going to have the opportunity to feel aligned with a lineage. If you like my work, if you feel aligned with the way I speak the language, then this might be a good reason to come study with us. Now, if you're seeking the why behind things, if you're like, yeah, that's interesting, I get it, I understand, but why? Why signs? What's the difference between a sign and a house? Why do they ever come up with a sign and a house? What's the distinction philosophically? Why does Mars represent this? Why does Mars in this sign represent that? If you are someone who feels empowered by understanding the why behind things, you are going to love this program, because that's how I am as a teacher. That's how I am as a person. And that's what this program is really all about. Number 5, you are looking for astrological community. Look, I think Nightlight is unique in terms of the kind of warmth, acceptance, safety, and inclusiveness that our community includes intellectually, spiritually. We are really pride ourselves on being a peaceful kind of family. I'm a Cancer, right? So it's kind of a family-oriented environment. So anyway, I will end it there. If you check any of those boxes, you may want to consider studying with us. Now, I'm going to take you over to 2 things. I want to show you the dashboard. So here is the Thinkific page. You're going to join this. And on your dashboard, you're going to find any courses that you've enrolled in at Nightlight. And there are many, so you may end up in being involved in multiple courses. And you'll find that they're all there on your dashboard. Click on one of them and it will take you in. You're going to find that on the left-hand side, there's orientation instructions, course information, class links, and calendar, all the technical stuff you need to know when you join the course. And then you're going to find that when you go through the lessons, that the lesson includes the video, the audio, the slides, the transcripts, the Q&A box text if you couldn't make it live and see what people were talking about, flashcards, homework, a bonus PDF with all sorts of additional recommended reading, bonus videos, additional video links for bonus material. So every single time that you want to visit something within the course, everything is nicely organized. So you can see here, I'm going to pause this before it starts going, but you can embed the video right there. It's embedded and you can watch it. And then if you wanted to, you could also, right here, you could also download the video and watch it on your own device. And that's same for the audio as well. And then as you go, you'll see all of the lessons are laid out. The study sessions are also recorded if you can't make those live. So everything is nicely arranged on the website for you. And that makes it a course that if you wanted to take 3 years to accomplish, you could take 3 years to accomplish. If you want to take it for the sake of getting certified, you have the full year plus an additional year to take the exam. So, 2 years total that we give people if you're on a professional track. But most people complete the program in a year. And a lot of people, over 50% of our students go on to our year 2 and then our year 3 and horary programs as well. Now, final thing I'm going to show you is right here. You're going to find Here is the enrollment options at the bottom of the first year course page. Again, this is at nightlightastrology.com, and you're going to click on the first year course, go to the bottom. The early bird payment saves you several $100s off the cost of the course. That's available till May 15th. Early bird installment plan saves you on the installment plan, regular cost of the course. That's also only available until May 15th. And then need-based tuition. All of our programs include a need-based option where we give you a sliding scale and we say, you pick your monthly tuition number within this sliding scale, which is greatly reduced off the normal tuition price. That is for people who are on a fixed or limited income, receiving disabilities, single mom, whatever the case might be. We want to make sure that nobody's priced out of studying astrology. So you don't have to feel any shame. If that is you, if you need help, if you want to take this, but you need to make it work within a tight budget, we get it. Times are tough right now. We don't think people should be priced out of studying a sacred subject like astrology. So we've been offering need-based pricing for 15 years. Nightlight is a donation-based school. It started that way. We have a sliding scale, so it's kind of like donation. You get to choose your rate anyhow. So if that's something that will help you, please use it. Thank you for listening to this. I hope it gave you a really deep and comprehensive introduction to what the course is all about and why you might find it exciting to come study with us starting at the end of June. So any questions you have about the program as you're visiting the course, email us, info@nightlightastrology.com. We'll be glad to talk about anything that you have questions about. We are here and we have a wonderful staff of people at Nightlight who will be a part of your learning experience and are all glad to help you. All right, that's it. We'll see you again later. Bye.